The secret to a Band 7 IELTS speaking score? Stop trying to sound perfect and start sounding real. I'll show you exactly how to do that in this video, because here's what most students do. They study for weeks, they memorize phrases, they practice in the mirror, and then they walk into that exam room, and the moment the examiner says, "Let's begin," everything disappears. Sound familiar? That's not a language problem. That's a strategy problem. And today, we're fixing it. All of it. My name is Mr. Marcus. I've spent the last 8 years teaching IELTS preparation, and I've sat across from hundreds of students who felt exactly the way you might feel right now. Nervous, underprepared, not sure if their English is good enough. Almost every single one of them passed. Not because they suddenly became fluent overnight, but because they finally understood what the examiner actually wants to hear. That's what the English Edge is all about. And that's what this video is going to give you.
Now, joining me today is Ariel. She's been preparing for her IELTS exam for the past few months, and she's agreed to demonstrate a real Part 2 model answer for us today. Ariel's exam is in 3 weeks, so this isn't just an exercise. This is the real thing.
Hi, everyone. Wish me luck.
You don't need luck, Ariel. You've got this. Stick around to the end, because the tip I share in Part 3 is the one most IELTS teachers never tell you, and it could be the difference between a Band 6 and a Band 7. Let's go. First things first, let's talk about what the IELTS speaking test actually looks like, because a lot of students walk in without really knowing the structure, and that alone can cost you marks. The speaking test is a face-to-face interview with one examiner. It takes about 11 to 14 minutes in total. There's no audience, no other students, just you and one person having a conversation. And it's split into 3 parts. Part 1 is the warm-up, about 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner asks simple questions about your life, your home, your work or studies, your hobbies, your daily routine. These feel easy, but there's a trap, and I'll tell you what it is in a moment. Part 2 is the long turn. This is where most students get nervous. You get a card with a topic and 4 bullet points. You have 1 minute to prepare. Then you speak, on your own, no interruptions, for 1 to 2 minutes.
Part 3 is the discussion, about 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner asks you deeper, more abstract questions related to the Part 2 topic. This is your chance to really show off your thinking and your vocabulary. Now, here's something important. The examiner is scoring you on 4 things throughout the whole test: fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Not just one, all 4 at the same time. Keep that in mind as we go through each part. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you about Part 1 is something most students only find out after they've already lost marks.
Okay, Part 1. Here's the trap I mentioned. Because the questions are simple, do you work or study? What do you do in your free time? Most students give simple answers. 1 sentence. Done. And that's exactly the wrong move. Think about it this way. If someone asks you, "Do you enjoy cooking?" and you say, "Yes, I do," that's a grammatically correct answer, but it tells the examiner almost nothing about your level of English. What you want to do is give a short but developed answer. Something like, "Yes, actually, I really enjoy it, especially on weekends when I have more time. I find it relaxing, and honestly, it's one of the only times in the day when I'm not thinking about anything else." Same question, totally different impression.
1. Always extend your answer with a reason or a small detail. 2. Don't memorize scripts. Examiners can tell immediately, and it actually lowers your score. 3. It's okay to say, "That's a good question, actually," if you need a second to think. It sounds natural, not nervous. 4. Speak at a comfortable pace. Rushing makes your pronunciation harder to follow. Part 1 is not about being perfect. It's about sounding like someone who's genuinely comfortable having a conversation in English. Now, we get to Part 2, the section that most students dread. But once I show you this one prep trick,
I promise you will never look at the cue card the same way again.
Now, part 2, the long turn. This is the part that scares people the most, and I completely understand why. Speaking on your own for 2 minutes feels like forever when you're nervous and the examiner is sitting there staring at you. But here's the truth. 2 minutes is actually not that long if you know how to structure what you're saying. When you get the cue card, use your 1 minute of prep time wisely. Don't try to write full sentences. Jot down 3 or 4 keywords. Who, what, when, why. That's your structure.
Click the link on the screen to watch the full breakdown of this strategy.
And when you start speaking, tell a story. Not a list, a story.
Stories have a beginning, a middle, and a feeling at the end. They sound natural, they're easy to follow, and they stick in the examiner's memory. Quick tips for part 2. 1. Start with a clear opening line. Don't just dive in. Say something like, I'd like to talk about someone who had a big impact on my life. That one sentence tells the examiner you're organized and confident. 2. Use the 4 bullet points on the card as checkpoints, not a strict script. Cover them, but in your own natural way. 3. Don't stop early. If you finish before 2 minutes, add a reflection. What I find most interesting about this is that kind of line. Buys you time and sounds genuinely thoughtful. 4. Don't panic if you lose your place. Just pause, take a breath, and continue. A natural pause is not a mistake. It's human. Now, let's hear what a Band 7 Part 2 answer actually sounds like. Here's Ariel answering the topic, describe a person who inspired you. Pay close attention to the specific words and moments Ariel uses.
After she finishes, I'm going to show you exactly which lines pushed her into Band 7 territory, and which technique at the very end is the one most students completely forget.
I'd like to talk about my aunt. Her name is Miriam, and she's honestly one of the most remarkable people I've ever known. She's my mom's younger sister, so I've been around her my whole life. But it wasn't until I was about 16 or 17 that I really started to understand how extraordinary she was. Miriam never went to university. Growing up, the family didn't have the money for it, and she was expected to help at home from a very young age. But instead of letting that define her limits, she started a small tailoring business from the living room with just a sewing machine and a lot of determination. By the time I was a teenager, she had 3 employees working for her, a proper shop, and a waiting list of clients. I remember sitting with her one afternoon while she was working, and I asked her, "Auntie, weren't you ever scared? Didn't you ever think it was too hard?" And she looked at me and said, "Ariel, fear doesn't go away. You just learn to keep moving while it's there." That sentence honestly changed something in me. What inspires me most about her isn't the business, it's her mindset. She never waited for perfect conditions. She never waited to feel ready. She just started and kept going. Whenever I face something difficult, an exam, a tough decision, anything, I think about Miriam, and I remind myself that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing the thing anyway. She's never won an award or been on television, but to me, she's one of the most inspiring people in the world.
Okay, did you catch what just happened there? Let's break it down quickly because there are some really smart moves in that answer. First, she opened with a clear statement. I'd like to talk about my aunt. Simple, confident, organized. The examiner immediately knows she has a plan. Second, she used a specific memory. The moment sitting with her aunt, asking that question. That's a real scene with emotion and dialogue. That's what separates a Band 6 answer from a Band 7. Generic answers say she worked very hard.
Band 7 answers show you a moment where you feel it. Third, look at the vocabulary. She didn't say she was not scared. She said fear doesn't go away. You just learn to keep moving while it's there. That's natural, idiomatic English, and it's memorable.
Other strong phrases she used: let that define her limits, instead of just stop her. A lot of determination, natural collocation. Perfect conditions, shows abstract thinking. Courage isn't about not being afraid. This is the kind of reflection that pushes scores up. And finally, she ended with impact. She didn't just stop talking. She closed with a thought that lingered. She's never won an award, but to me, she's one of the most inspiring people in the world. That's a Band 7 ending. Now, Part 3 is where students either shine or fall apart. And there's one thing I'm going to share with you in the next 2 minutes that I genuinely wish someone had told me when I first started teaching this exam. Don't skip this part.
Now, Part 3. After your long turn, the examiner will ask you questions connected to the same topic, but taken to a bigger, more abstract level. For example, after describe a person who inspired you, Part 3 questions might sound like, do you think schools do enough to inspire young people? What qualities do you think make someone a good role model? Has social media changed the way people find inspiration today? These are not simple yes or no questions. The examiner wants to hear you think out loud in English.
Quick tips for Part 3. 1. Give an opinion, then back it up. Don't just say, I think social media is helpful. Say, I think social media has made inspiration more accessible. You can follow someone's journey in real time, which wasn't possible before. But at the same time, it can create unrealistic expectations. That's the kind of balanced thinking that scores well. 2. It's completely fine to say, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that. It sounds natural. It's not a weakness. 3. Use discourse markers to sound organized. On one hand, on the other hand, generally speaking, from my perspective, these small phrases signal to the examiner that you're a fluent, structured thinker. 4. Don't be afraid to disagree with the premise of the question. If the examiner asks, do you think celebrities make good role models? You can say, honestly, I'm not sure they always do, and here's why. Examiners love a thoughtful, confident opinion.
So, let's bring it all together. The IELTS speaking test is not a memory test. It's not about saying perfect sentences. It's about showing one person in about 12 minutes that you can think, communicate, and connect in English. Part 1. Be conversational, not robotic. Extend your answers naturally. Part 2. Tell a story. Use real details. Open strong, close with a reflection. Part 3. Think out loud. Give opinions. Be specific. Don't be afraid to disagree. And above everything else, remember that the examiner is not your enemy. They're not sitting there hoping you'll fail. They're there to hear you at your best. So take a breath, be yourself, and trust the preparation you've put in.